Welcome to the MMHP and the 989, channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history.
Hello, Michigan music lovers. This is Scott Baker. I want to welcome you to the Michigan Music History Podcast. I am flanked by Michigan music royalty. To the left, Dr. J. To the right, Sir Fred. We cut from just around the block of the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame in Bay City, Michigan, here at Studio 163 in Essexville. And now it's time to grab a favorite beverage, hit the cruise, and take a trip back with us through Michigan's rich music history.
This podcast is sponsored by our friends at Electric Kitsch, located at 2106 Kosciuszko Avenue in Bay City, Michigan. And now, here's your host, Scott Baker.
And we're back for part 2 with the great Kevin Cole, Bay City's own heir to Gershwin. We want to thank Kevin for making the trek to Studio 163 here in Essexville, and also for Kevin's absolute vast knowledge of the area, the world, and all the music spots that tickle the fancy of many listeners. He has a huge fan base throughout the world, and we are so grateful to have him here in our state, let alone our mid-Michigan area. And in this episode, part 2 here, we're going to have Kevin give us a little bit of insight on the last 10 years or 15 years or so and take us into the future of what it holds for him, what he's been through, and what he continues to deliver and have on his deck in the coming years. So without further ado, Kevin Cole, episode 2.
Now, you did this when you're still living in Bay City?
Yeah.
Well, what prompted you to move to Chicago then?
Well, let's see. My first move actually away from Bay City was in 1980. 1980? Let me think about that. 81. Yeah, 81, 82. I moved to Louisville, Kentucky. And that happened because, kind of a strange coincidence, I guess how it happened. Mrs. Jones, the woman I just talked about, a former voice teacher at Interlochen, was from Harrodsburg, Kentucky, which is central Kentucky. And when I graduated from Interlochen, she asked me if I'd ever been to Kentucky. I said, no. So you should see the bluegrass. And I said, okay. So I went with her. I said, I'll go down, and spent a week there. And then she decided to retire there. But during that, she took me to a place called the Beaumont Inn, which is still there, and they had this beautiful African rosewood 1880s Steinway in the parlor. And so she said, you should play something, because she knew, knows the owners. This is her hometown, knows everybody. And so I did. And so that every once in a while, I'd go down to Harrodsburg. And then in 1980, John Y. Brown became governor of Kentucky, and he was married to Phyllis George, former Miss America, who was one of the first women sportscasters for CBS.
I remember her very well.
Okay. Well, since piano was her talent for Miss America, Mrs. Jones got it in her head that they should have me come and play for their parties at the governor's mansion or whatnot. So she said, we're going to take a trip to Frankfort, the capital of Kentucky. I said, okay. So we go there. She meets the chief of staff, and I'm out in an outer office waiting. And I became very good friends with this chief of staff, Liz Dahl. And years later, Liz would say, here's this woman who just wouldn't take no for an answer. You got to hear Kevin play. You have to. Phyllis really needs to hear Kevin play. And she wouldn't let go of it. So finally, Liz says, okay. So we walked over to the really old governor's mansion next to the Capitol, and they had this piano. It looked like a Louis XIV, all painted, and I mean, just unbelievable piano. And it probably hadn't been tuned since Martha Washington played the piano. It was horrible. It sounded like there were fly swatters on top of the hammers. It was just awful. So she's holding up, Liz, the chief of staff for John Y. Brown and Phyllis George, this little micro cassette, not a dictaphone, but we're talking about like a voice recorder thing. Mm-hmm. So she's holding it up, and I play my Gershwin medley. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call back in Michigan, from Liz Dahl saying, how would you like to play for Governor John Y. Brown and Phyllis George's first derby party? fine. Let me tell you who the guests are going to be. And she started on Jimmy Carter, Roger Staubach, Muhammad Ali. She just went on this whole list of Armand Hammer, Walter Cronkite, blah, blah, blah. And she said, how's that sound? I said, what do I need to do? She goes, well, Phyllis has her Baldwin Grand that she got for being Miss America in her back family room of their mansion, not the governor's mansion, but their private residency at Cave Hill. So would you like to, you would just play music, for 3, 4, 5 hours or whatnot. I said, fine. So to condense the story, because there's a lot to these stories, but to condense it, the day of it, because I drove down from Michigan, I show up an hour early, actually maybe a little more than that, and Phyllis is about 7 months pregnant at the time. It's a beautiful home, and there's a big screen door, these columns, the whole bit. And I go up to the door, and I'm kind of knocking, hello, anybody there? And all of a sudden, this woman is coming forward, and she's absolutely radiant. Just because Phyllis George is a beautiful woman. But she comes forward, and she goes, are you Kevin? And she's from Denton, Texas. She goes, are you Kevin? I said, yeah. She goes, well, hi, I'm Phyllis. And we shook hands, and she says, oh, I'm going to love this. She says, as you can see, I'm not ready. So if you want to warm up a little bit, I would love it while I'm getting ready. And couldn't have been nicer. So from that, and then there's a story about Muhammad Ali and I sharing the piano bench, but that's another story. But from that one, then they started using me for all of their private events at the governor's mansion. She had, when Walter Cronkite retired from CBS, she had a private dinner for 18 guests, like some of the wealthiest people on the planet. They flew me down to play, for that. At their home. And then I played at the last Derby party because, he was in office for 4 years. And that's interesting because Andy Warhol was at that one.
Wow.
And somewhere in his millions of photos he took, and dumb me, I should have contacted him right away. He took pictures of me playing the piano. And I actually spoke with Andy Warhol when he wasn't speaking to anyone at that Derby party. He had donated some kind of lithograph of something like his interpretation of the Kentucky Derby to be auctioned off. And they have this giant white tent, could seat 400 people for this Derby party. And they had peacocks on the lawn and orchestra playing on the front lawn. It's like Gone with the Wind. It was crazy. So I took a break from playing inside, but while I was playing inside, I knew he sat right behind me for a long time. And he had 2 bodyguards with him. And he had his camera around his neck because, he was notorious for taking pictures of everything. And at one point, he went to the butt end of the piano and started taking some pictures while I'm playing. And I'm thinking to myself, Andy Warhol's taking my picture. Okay, this is surreal. This is what? And I remember I was wearing it because, this is 1981. I'm wearing this cream-colored suit with the brown collar, probably with a little gold chain because that was, you had to look like Saturday Night Fever. And so he leaves and he just scurries off. And so there's a Derby brunch the next day and I'm to play for that. So I go outside on a break in this big white tent and she's got a stage set up and she has upward people performing and it's just all wholesome and apple pie. And then Phyllis gets up, oh, Andy Warhol's here and he's got this, we're going to auction off this beautiful, Andy, why don't you come up here and say a few words? He comes up. Nothing. She goes like this with the mic. Nothing. He's just standing there. Okay, just like blankly playing. Well, Andy's just, I know what Andy would tell you. He's just enjoying this time here. So she's like filling in. Like, wait, he's just standing there. So I am like bound and determined to meet him. Mm-hmm. All right. And maybe get him to sign something. I don't know. So I line myself up at the back of this big tent because they have rows of banquet tables. I line myself up at one of the rows that I think when he leaves the stage, he's going to come down. I'm just guessing. But I'm thinking he's going to, okay? It's like pinball. You pull it and you hope it goes down one of those lanes. Okay, here comes it. Sure enough, it comes right down my lane. And they had a kind of a one-page program menu kind of thing, events of the day on all the tables. I grabbed one and I said, Mr. Warhol, would you mind signing this for me? And he took my pen. And he starts signing. He stops midway and he looks up at me. He goes, you're the young man who was wearing the 3-piece cream-colored suit yesterday at the piano. I said, yes, I am. Finishes signing, hands it to me, walks off. And I went, he spoke to me. He wouldn't speak to Phyllis and all these hundreds of people, but he spoke to me. So dumb me, I should have, because I could have through the governor's office. Obviously, they know how to contact him and say, "Hey, is there any way I could get a copy, print of that picture?" Because somewhere in the files.
Oh my Lord!
Now, he was very meticulous about labeling things, so they just have to look at the Kentucky Derby. But I would love that picture. Again, dumb me, I could have said, "Mr. Ward, would you just sign that photo and send it to me?" Because but I got the memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just again.
That picture's somewhere.
It's somewhere. It's some whatever file. But it's the power of music because. But he was so observant of everything. But
apparently,
I mean, he could have just brushed me off, but he just that.
Well, this leads you then, the success you were having prompts you to go to the big city then? Is that where this is coming to?
I moved to Louisville for a year because they were having me come down so much to play private events that the chief of staff, Liz Dahl, said, "Would you consider moving down here?" She goes, "I know there's a dinner club, restaurant, that has a jazz trio that's leaving. It's called the Captain's Quarters." And she's, you should come down and audition for them. And because this way you'd have the job, and then we could use you when we want you. So I did. I got that gig. I played 6 nights a week from 7 to 1 a.m.
Wow.
Had Mondays off. And it was quite a gig. Yeah. And I would take requests. And
good pay, too?
It was enough for me to afford an apartment and be in Louisville. I remember when I moved down there, it was Labor Day weekend, and beginning of November, they had their first little bit of snow, and I'm talking, we wouldn't even blink, and they don't know how to drive in it. They were just all over the place. I'm like, I have 5 miles to go from my apartment to work. How in the hell? I mean, these people in front of me, somebody's going to kill me. It's not going to be my fault. They don't know how to drive and just like, this teeny bit of snow. But anyway, from there I moved back here. And then 1990, I moved out to L.A. because I knew how things went in New York, but I didn't know how things went in L.A. So I moved out to L.A. for a year. That was interesting. I had enough money for 6 months. But then I started getting hired as a sub to play at some of the big hotels because of course, I don't find just any apartment. I find an apartment in Beverly Hills. And in 1990, you know what my rent was a month? Okay. 1990. Even today, this would be considered kind of high for rent. I was paying $920 a month for rent. And it wasn't a fancy apartment by any means, but it was right across the street from the famous Chasen's restaurant. And back in the day, there used to be a Folgers coffee ad. These people don't know it, but it's Chasen's restaurant. They just had a $400 meal, but they're being served Folgers coffee. I'm thinking, okay, how dumb can these people be? They can have this elaborate meal, but they don't know, 50-cent coffee. Come on. But anyway, that was the big commercial for famous Chasen's, and that's where all the celebs went. So I lived right across the street from that. And I said to myself, as I'm moving in 1990, Labor Day weekend, I said, wouldn't it be something if my first gig was playing at Chasen's restaurant? 2 weeks to the day I moved in, I threw on my tux. I'm playing for an NBC party in honor of Red Buttons, the comedian.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You got to watch what you say. You can say it in your head all you want. It's when you say it out loud. Sometimes the cosmos goes, well, we're going to give him that one. That's kind of fun.
Oh, man.
But from that, the guy that hired me was a friend of Liz Dahl, the chief of staff from Louisville, from the governor. She knew one person out there. When she heard I was moving out there, she goes, oh, you should contact my friend Bob Nunu. He's a lawyer for NBC. So she had told him about me, and he's the one that called me at the apartment I just moved in and said, we're having this party. It's at Chase's. I said, I'm right across the street. Fine. After that party, he said to me, do you know anybody out here? I said, yeah, I know one classmate from Interlochen, Terry Harrington, whose father is Pat Harrington. Do you remember that comic who was on One Day at a Time, played Schneider?
Yeah.
But he was also from the old Steve Allen show and all that stuff. Well, his son Terry is a phenomenal jazz pianist and composer. He's in Tucson now, but he was out in L.A. And that was during the time when Terry was out there. His parents were split. So I knew Terry and his mom. That was kind of it. So Bob, the lawyer from NBC who had hired me to play the Chasen's party, said, well, the son of my math teacher out at Exeter, where he went to school, one of those high-tone all-boys schools in New Hampshire, his son's out here, and he's kind of an aspiring singer-songwriter. And, I think you two should know each other because he's been out here for a while now, and you should know him. And he said, is it okay if I give you his I give him your number to him? I said, sure. Well, lo and behold, now, again, we meet and we start going to these singer-songwriter workshops where, you get some burnt-out rock and roll guy and everything's on cassette. You give them your demo, you pay $40. They put it in within the first 10 seconds of hearing it, turn it off. Not enough of a hook. Next. About your song. Not enough of a hook.
Yeah.
And so we would get mad. What the heck do they know? Blah, 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 blah. And we do one of two things after those workshops. We either go to a bar and order pitchers of beer and tell, we're going to be great some year. Blah, blah, blah. Or we'd go to the C.C. Brown's, which was a great old ice cream parlor next to Grauman's Chinese that had the best hot fudge sundaes on the planet. So we drown ourselves, what, beer or hot fudge sundae?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, I'm not telling you his name yet on purpose. So, we're both there a year, we're struggling, we're doing our things, we're playing showcases, la, 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 but we do become very good friends. I moved back to Michigan after a year there. He stays probably another, almost a year, 10 months. Then he moves back to New Hampshire. Fast forward, that was 1990, 91, 92. Fast forward to the early 2000s. I'm on a plane going to Cincinnati to play with Cincinnati Pops outdoors, their big outdoor venue. On the plane ride from, where was I at that time? I was living in Chicago at that time. And I'll tell you how I got there, but this is again, the weird part of my life. I'm on the plane and I'm looking at the plane magazine, and they have a column of the big hit books right now, the number one books. And the number one book, fiction, is called The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. And I'm going, oh, that can't be the Dan Brown that I know from LA. I mean, yeah, he told me, he wrote a little bit, but no, that can't be. I said, but you know what? I'm sure Cincinnati has a bookstore. I'll go in and see. Because if it's him, there'll be a picture on the back flap of the cover. So sure enough, I get in, check into a hotel. I have time to kill. I go to there's a Brentano's bookstore in Cincinnati. I see they have a big pyramid stacked of the Da Vinci Code. Next to it is another big pyramid of Hillary Clinton's book. So she's number one for nonfiction. He's number one for fiction. So I pull the book out and I turn to the back flap, and it's Dan Brown, my friend from LA. The friend who always knew that I was good to make my mom's homemade spaghetti, and he was always good to have a frozen burrito in his microwave if we got hungry. Because we were little starving artists kind of thing. Okay. So I'm thinking, okay, he wrote the Da Vinci Code. Oh my God. Wow. He won't remember. First of all, he'll have short-term memory. Who? Kevin, who? What? There's no way. His life has exploded. So I go to the counter to buy the book, and I said, look, I would never do this, but I am so happy, because I said, I'm so happy for this guy's success because he's one of the nicest people you would ever meet. And if you got to know him, you'd say he deserves every good thing that happens to him because he's just a super nice, down-to-earth person, kind as can be. So I say to the woman at the counter, I said, see that picture? I know him. I said, I'm not saying that for any other reason than he deserves this success. He's one of the nicest people you ever want to meet. So I'm thinking, okay, I do my concerts, I get back to Chicago going, how in the hell am I ever going to get in contact with Dan Brown? So I said, he's got to have a website. I go to the website. So they have disclaimer. Dan Brown does not accept any personal messages, blah, 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 blah. So I look and I see his publicist and then I see his literary agent. I thought, I'm going to send an email to his publicist. What do I have to lose? So I do. I said, hi, my name is Kevin Cole. I knew Dan Brown in his LA days. We were both, struggling singer-songwriters. I'm so happy for his success. I'm not asking for anything other than if he'd like to get in touch with me, here's my info. If not, please tell him, congratulations, and I'm very happy for him. Within a half hour, I get an email back saying, Kevin, this is Blythe. Well, Blythe was somebody he met out there who worked for one of these songwriter promoter groups, and they, not too long after, got married. All right? She says, this is Blythe. I'm actually his publicist. You'll hear from Dan within the hour. I'm like, cool. He sends me an email within the hour, and the opening statement is this. He said, how could I ever forget you, a person that plays Gershwin like a god? He says, of course I remember you. So that started, and I went, your life must be just crazy, and all that. So again, just serendipity. So we're friends to this day. When he wrote, was it The Lost Symbol? He had me out to New York for the release of the book. They had a huge party and all this.
Man.
It was very cool to be there because he was the man of the hour, and he's, but he, and everyone, of course, was clamoring around him, and I'm just, just little mouse kind of. So about an hour into that party for The Lost Symbol, he worked his way over to me. He says, I've been trying to come over to see you, I said, I know. I said, Dan, this is your night. This is not about. He goes, no, that's not true. And he gave me a big hug, and he said, look, this wouldn't mean anything if my families and friends that I care about weren't here. This would mean nothing. And I went, oh, you just gave me $1 million. Because that's how it should be. You can have all the success. You can win the lotto. All that stuff is fine and dandy. But if you don't have the people you love or care about there to share it with you, doesn't mean a hill of beans.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So he's terrific. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you've also struck up a friendship with Marvin Hamlish also, right?
Yeah. That, again, is a weird thing. Over time, you start playing for all the major and first tier, second tier, third tier orchestras in the country, all right? And two of my favorite orchestras are Minnesota Orchestra and San Diego Symphony, and I had played with them multiple times. Well, of course, I knew who Marvin Hamlish was and all of that, never dreaming I'd be meeting and working with him for the last 8 years of his life, not knowing that it was the last 8 years of his life. But what happened was this. I got a phone call from a woman, a very sweet elderly woman, for a summer music festival at SPAC. And those initials stand for Saratoga Performing Arts Center in Saratoga, New York. And the Philadelphia Orchestra has a 3-week summer residency there, not too far from the racetrack, in Saratoga. She calls and says, oh, we need someone to play the Rhapsody in Blue on such and such date, and Marvin Hamlish will be conducting. Are you available? And I thought, yeah. So I go. And as Marvin liked to tell the story, as he did in many of the concerts we did over 8 years, I always show up earlier than necessary for my first rehearsal with the orchestra. Sometimes you only get one, because I want to try out the piano and just check things out. So they have the 9-foot Steinway, and I'm there plenty early. I think it was like 8:15, and our rehearsal wasn't until 10. And I'm just playing. And as Marvin would like to tell the story, he said he came in, because it's a big outdoor venue. It's half covered, and then the half is out on the lawn, okay? So he comes in early while I'm playing, and I don't see him. He's at the back of the stage, and he thinks he hears two pianists. He thinks he hears two pianos playing. Of course, I'm using my arrangement of Gershwin's Fascinating Rhythm as a warm-up to test out what the piano can do. And it does sound like I have a third hand, okay? I will admit that. But anyway, I have no idea that anyone's coming in because I'm playing. And so he said he was rounding the back of the stage, and he's across a stage left from me. And he said, and I look over and I see one guy sitting at the piano. He says, I actually bent down to see if there was a tape recorder that he was playing with, because it sounded humanly impossible that could be one person. He said, but it was one guy. And then he'd say to the audience, and because I play that as an encore after doing Rhapsody in Blue with the orchestra, this is what would crack me up. I get done playing Rhapsody in Blue, would always end the first half of the Gershwin evening that I did with Marvin Hamlish for 8 years, all over the country. And he's, after I played Rhapsody Blue, big finish, blood, sweat, and tears, he calmed the audience down. He goes, "You ain't heard nothing yet." Because he couldn't wait for me to play my 2-minute Fascinating Rhythm, the piece that brought us together that he thought was even more incredible than the Rhapsody Blue. I'm like, yeah, they ain't heard nothing yet. What are you talking about? 16 and a half minutes of sweat. And the other, no. So then he'd say, if he'd point to me, to the audience, he'd say, "And if he wasn't such a nice guy, I'd shoot him." And then he'd go ahead, hit it, kid. And then I'd play this Fascinating Rhythm. And he'd stand there and just beam because he just thought it was just the coolest thing. But that's how we met. And because apparently his agent told him year previous, "Marvin, you need a Gershwin evening." Because he had all these pops evenings and he's going all over the country. And so he said, "Okay, well, get me something I'll put the Rhapsody, I'll get someone to play it." So we did 2 nights at SPAC that summer. And that would have been the summer, I want to say 2004. So I, after the first night, I said to him afterwards, I was dressing him, I said, and I couldn't call him Mr. Hamlin. He said, "It's Marvin." I said, "Okay." I said, "Okay, first of all," I said, "who put us together?" He goes, "I'm not sure yet who recommended," because somebody had to recommend me to his agent. And then Marvin just said, "Fine," because he had never heard of me. But then the second thing I said to him, I said, "But Marvin," I said, "you are a phenomenal pianist." I mean, he still holds the record. He was 6 years old when he was accepted at Juilliard.
Oh, my Lord.
I mean, he was a genius. I said, "You could play and conduct like Leonard Bernstein did." He looked at me and goes, "I don't want to work that hard." And then he said, "And I don't want to do this piece with any other pianist but you from now on."
That's awesome.
Which was, it was just like super cool. So we finally figured out that the orchestra manager for San Diego and Minnesota, both orchestras that Marvin had conducted with, that I had played with, they said, "Oh, if you're doing Rhapsody, you got to get Kevin Cole." So they had said, and that's how it happened. And then he became mentor and friend. And it's hard to believe that next year it'll be 10 years that he's been gone because it was so unexpected, But talk about, I mean, just a guy who got into the business the way he did, but is so generous behind the scenes. Another one, like a Dan Brown, they have helped more people. Marvin Hamlish has helped more people without any fanfare or people. He paid people's hospital bills in towns we'd be performing, because somebody would say, meet him after, "Oh, my brother's in the hospital, he's not doing good. Oh, if you could just stop and say he's a big fan," and then Marvin would end up paying his hospital. I mean, just
wow.
Nobody ever knew.
Right.
Yeah, great
Unbelievable.
guy. Great guy.
The positivity just spreads itself around when it's all good. That's one thing that's held true for a lot of people we've had on the show here. It's when the kindness comes in, it pays itself back in returns that are serendipitous.
Well,
like you say.
I've always felt that with great talent comes great responsibility, or actually greater responsibility, because you're speaking for those who can't. You're connecting music with people that come into a concert hall, which if you're doing this live, and a lot of them don't know what to expect. They've never heard of Kevin Cole. What's that? Oh, he's Marvin Hamlish. Well, Marvin's always good for a good night. Or when I'm just me and not Marvin. So my job is not to win them over, because a lot of times people say that. There is a formula though to it. By the third piece or third song, if they're not with you, they're not going to be. Okay. That holds true. I've never seen it fail. By the third song, they're either with you or they're not with you. Luckily, they've always been with me, because you go out there and say, "We're all going to have a good time." You don't get to say that maybe, but you have to think that. So when you sit down at the piano, they see you enjoying it. And I've had it more times than once. People would say afterwards, I'm signing CDs, they go, "Do you know how joyful it is to watch you play? Because you're having the best time." And so I'm just smiling, because we don't see people having that much fun. They're so serious and they're in their world and it's beautiful, but you really look like, I said, how can I not smile and show on my face? I'm playing some of the best music ever written, happy stuff, powerful stuff. And my job is to just have you relax, plug into it, no matter how good or shitty your week was. And so that you can get up tomorrow and do it all over again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's and I've had crews, stage managers and tech crews and whatnot at theaters say, "You're not like anybody else we get in here." And I say, "Well, how so?" "Well, like, you're sitting in the office talking to us about the Chicago Cubs, and then 10 minutes later, you got to go on stage and like do this phenomenal thing, and then you come off stage and you're still talking to us. You don't know how many artists, we can't even look at them. They have it in their contract. Crew cannot look at them. They have to get in their zone." And I said, "Look, first of all, if I don't know what I'm doing and haven't done my homework before I get here, they shouldn't have hired me. Now, when I walk out on stage, I'm business. I'm not all business, but yeah, I do my job, but I don't have to be a, horse's backside when I walk off stage. Because let's face it, box office personnel and crew, if they like you, you're going to be asked back.
Yeah.
If they don't like you and you're asked back, you're going to have a lot of fun because they're going to make your life pretty miserable. But no, I just, either know what you do before you show up or you can't fake it.
Have you, you've gone around doing all the Gershwin, obviously, and all the show tunes. How much of your own music have you had time to write, and how have you put out records? And can you give us an idea of what you've done for yourself?
In my solo concerts, I've been able to do much more of that because, when you're at the symphony orchestra, you got to have charts, you have to have orchestrations. Yeah. However, I had one of the songs. Lord, this is kind of an interesting thing too. Okay, I was approached how many years ago now? That's got to be at least 10, maybe 15 years ago, by the Ira Gershwin estate, George's brother, to do a CD of Ira Gershwin material. And I said to them, I said, "Well, okay, unlike George, Ira wrote the words, so I'm going to have to sing on this if you want." I said, you like my voice enough for me? Oh yeah, you're fine. We were going to open up the vault, and anything you want, whether it's been used or not, unpublished, we'll at your access. I said, fine. So just, come up with your list and submit it and all that. So I did. Well, I knew there was a lyric that Ira had written that was never set to music. Now, every lyricist probably has a few of those lying around. Harold Arlen or Jerome Kern, I think, were supposed to write it, but it just didn't happen, so it got put aside. Also, on this, so I asked if I could set an Ira Gershwin lyric. Well, they had never let anyone do that. I mean, that's like asking to rewrite the Bible, because he's one of the premier lyricists of our time, Ira Gershwin. But Robert Kimball, who is the big consultant for the Ira Gershwin estate, knew my work, and was the go-between for all this, said, they said, go ahead. On top of that, there was a lyric that they had, and Harold Arlen, after George died, Ira needed to get out of his doldrums because George died in 1937, and Ira lived, till 1984, I believe it was. But anyway, so Kern and Harold Arlen, they started to write with Ira, just even songs, just stuff to get him back in the swing of things. Because, I mean, obviously, his brother, they were very close, and he's gone. So there was always this question about, I remember Ed Jablonski playing for me a demo of Harold Arlen humming tunes that there weren't lyrics for, or they were supposed to be, I don't know. But for some reason, when I read the lyric, I said, I really like this lyric. I said, I bet you it goes with this tune. So then I had to contact the Harold Arlen estate and say, look, there was a recording, it's a demo, blah, 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 blah. And they said, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. They sent it to me as an MP3, and by God, it fit with that lyric perfectly. Wow. So not only did they let me write a lyric to it, music to an Ira tune, I was also able to put a new Harold Arlen, Ira Gershwin thing together. So that being said, they were very pleased with how it turned out. I was too, because it has that flavor of a tune that would be for a Fred Astaire or whatnot. All right. I'm doing a tribute to Ira Gershwin with Chicago Symphony at the Ravinia Festival God, what year was that? It's in the 2000s. I'll say it was around 2012, 11, somewhere like that. So I asked one of my orchestrator friends, I said, look, I'm going to need a couple orchestrations for this show I'm doing with performers at Ravinia, Chicago Symphony. I said, would you orchestrate this tune? So for the very first time, I got to do one of my own songs, not only my own song, but with a lyric by Heir Gershwin. Thank you very much. Let's just start at the top with the Chicago Symphony as the accompaniment, and so that was quite a thrill. But I have tons of material, and I'm at that point now because I haven't done a CD. The last one I did was by Margaret Hamlish Evening with the Kalamazoo Symphony. We released a CD of that, but it's time for me to start getting this material out there because I'm gonna croak and somebody's gonna say, what's this? Wait, are we grilling tonight? Okay, start the coals with this.
This podcast is sponsored by our friends at Electric Kitsch, located at 2106 Kosciuszko Avenue in Bay City, Michigan. They offer new and used records, including local to Michigan original vinyl and CDs, as well as clothing, electronic equipment, funky household items, music gear, and stringed instrument repair. You can find them on the web or call 989-402-1411.
I just listened to your Christmas CD this morning, and you have a song on there about light.
Yeah, from the live concert I did. Yeah,
and you wrote
Be the
that,
Light.
right?
Yeah, and Sylvia McNair premiered that. Yeah, I did. I wrote lyrics, music to that. Yeah, it's not a bad tune.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah. But I also on my solo Christmas disc, which is piano, I have a piano instrumental on there called Your Gift that I kind of like. It's kind of Windham Hilly, I guess you'd say, if people even know Windham Hill anymore.
Yeah.
But it's, I have plenty of stuff. I just, again, marketing of all of this. But
people don't buy CDs anymore.
Well,
either.
no, I do.
Thing.
Well, I just saw the Canadian Brass recently, and I bought 3 of their CDs because I don't stream music. I don't download, and I know I should. Everyone says, what? But I don't have to listen to music every day. And sometimes it's on purpose because if you're writing yourself, you don't want to plagiarize, but there's only so much influence. I'm like, my God, I've heard so much. I don't need any more vocabulary.
Yeah. So you get to a point.
There's only 12 notes, okay? Mm-hmm. Just like telephone numbers. I know the combinations, but you're right. I need to get them out. But what's interesting is during this podcast with you is because this is the first time I've ever on a podcast. So you have that feather in your cap. But come spring of 2022, I'm going to start finding my own podcast. So many of these stories that I've touched on today will be elaborated on even further. But more so that I also want to take the cue from George Gershwin and allow up and coming. I know, here I am, kind of a known unknown, but I want to help be a voice for up-and-coming songwriters, because they're out there.
Yeah.
We're all part of a, brother and sisterhood.
That's how it keeps going.
It really does. And they have something to say. Melody exists, and words are important, and when you think that 98% of all the songs ever written are about love, how many more ways can we write about love?
Yeah.
Think about it. There are very few songs that are not written about love in one fashion or another.
The universal condition.
Yeah. Well, it's either you have it or you don't. There's no in between.
Right. True.
Yeah. So what are we complaining about? When we're in love, it's not enough. When we're not in love, it's not enough. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So, but there's always a new twist, on it and I think too, because people have had more time to reassess where their life is because of COVID, because of being shut down or in their own igloos, so to speak. I think they've had time to figure things out and what's important. And hopefully some of these people did it at an earlier age than I did. So they have longer to live the way they want to live. Because people say, oh, people don't want to work. They're taking that money. They don't want to work. I said, no, I don't think that's it. I think a lot of people who had very good jobs said, I don't want to do that anymore. Or I want to do it differently. I want to be home more. I want to see my kids. I want to make breakfast for my kids. So there's just something changed, and it's not for the bad. It's actually for the good.
Like taking that big breath.
Yeah. Why wait till the end of your life? Oh, I should have, or I could have, or I would have. No, just do that. Change it. But we're going to see what happens with me, because whatever happens, I've had a very rich life, in the sense of the people I've met, the people who've enjoyed my music, the people who I've been able to say thank you for enjoying what they created. I mean, I would have never, in my wildest dreams, thought I would be able to play for an Irving Berlin or a Harold Arlen and say thank you, for the music you wrote. I mean, but that was in lieu of me going to university. Mm-hmm. I was at Jablonski's. He was the one that knew all these people. He's the one that said, you got to hear this kid. You got to get blah, blah, blah. And so, And so in lieu of that, I get to meet Yip Harburg, the guy who wrote the lyrics and the script for The Wizard of Oz, countless other things, and they're all funny stories, because, I was just this kid, and they'd go, you remind me of George. Oh my God. And they'd cry and gnash their teeth, and you just go, I didn't mean to make you cry. No, it's a good thing. They just, I think in their mind and their eyes and ears too, they thought, well, here's somebody who's carrying this on when we thought it might be all done. Because once they go, they truly, most songwriters, especially from the Golden Age, maybe Berlin knew because he lived to be 101, but most of them had no idea of their legacy. George Gershwin especially, he hoped things would live on after he went. Of course, he didn't know he was going to die at 38.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was no guarantee, because they didn't really sit and, enjoy it. They were on to the next thing. They had to keep writing songs or songs for movies or works, whatever it was. This was their job.
Yeah.
And they treated it that way, They didn't have any island to go to in a studio and hold themselves up for a year to make a record. I mean, they were writing things like this. And in fact, a lot of times, especially for film, they'd write 3 times the amount of songs that were needed for the film. And then maybe out of 40 songs, they only use 7 in the movie,
Just incredible amounts of material.
Oh, yeah. And there's still stuff left to be discovered. Gershwin is famous for, I know it happened once, it might have happened twice, having a suitcase, or a briefcase, I should say, full of stuff he was working on and left it in a taxi cab.
Oh, my Lord. Oh. Wow.
Still not found to this day. And when asked about it, he goes, well, I'll write more. Because, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you just know it's in somebody's attic somewhere.
Yeah. Somebody's got tucked away.
Yeah. Who knows?
Give us a little rundown of your last few years. You were talking about when you got here. You've gone from stereo to mono. And how does that affected your position as a musician?
Well, you can actually go online and see this 10-minute video about my ordeal getting a brain tumor. Now, a brain tumor is what killed George Gershwin. So talk about irony.
Oh, wow.
And it's just, I go, okay, George, I've been accused of sounding like you. I've been accused of being you reincarnated. Couldn't you give me your cigar smoking habit and not your tumor? Really? This is going a little too far, okay? So in a nutshell, what happened was in the year 2017, starting January to November, little things were happening that just seemed odd to me. Like, I'd go to the movies, and I noticed my right ear, I was like cupping my ear because it wasn't clear. I was having trouble with my right ear a little bit. The right side of my face felt a little numb, like it had been shot with Novocaine. The right side of my tongue started losing its taste. And every once in a while, I'd be standing talking to somebody, and I'd lose my balance, and I wasn't moving. So I thought, these things. But I kept feeling a blockage on the right side of from the ear down, along the jawline, So I thought maybe I had a sinus, some kind of infection, ear infection. So I went to see my ENT in Saginaw, and this was just before Thanksgiving of 2017. He said, have you ever had an MRI? I said, no. He goes, you're going to get one. Got the MRI. After Thanksgiving, went in to get the results. And now I did a dumb thing. I went myself. Never go for test results without somebody with you. Okay? I learned my lesson. I go into his office. I'm sitting there. About 5 minutes later, he walks in, and he says the statement that you never want to hear unless you're watching a soap opera like General Hospital. He says this, I wish I had better news.
Oh.
And I'm looking at him like, did he just say that? Like, it's not registering quite. Like, you have a schwannoma, or what's known as an acoustic neuroma. It's one of the largest ones I've ever seen. You need to call the Michigan Ear Institute right now. Ask for Dr. Babu, and he's the one that will take care of this, because you have to get this out as soon as possible. So I'm trying to process this, what he just said to me, because I'm feeling okay, other than these little annoyances. I said, did I just hear you right? Boil it down. I have a brain tumor. Yes. And I have to call this Michigan Ear Institute I've never heard of, that's down in Novi, Birmingham, whatever. And they're going to have to operate and get this out of me? Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, I'm glad we know what it is. But second, if you had what I have in my head right now, is Dr. Babu the person you'd be going to? He goes, absolutely.
That's what you need to hear.
All I need to know. So I go to my car, and I am ready to lose it. I'm like, I said, but you can't lose it. You have to call them right now. You have to go see it. So I could feel it. It's like a volcano. I was ready to just burst into tears. And I swore at myself and said, you don't have effing time with us right now. And then all of a sudden, it just like vacuumed away. It just went out of my body like an exorcism. I called there. This was on a Monday. They said, we have an 8:30 Wednesday appointment open. I said, fine, I'll take it. Leedsburg drove me down, two of us, because I said, Leeds. Now, he has hearing aids, too. And I know I was starting to have compromised hearing. I said, well, between the two of us, we'll figure it out. So we go down. They have the MRI. They send in an assistant first, somebody who's interning and learning and all this stuff. And so he's talking to me, and he's young, and it's all good, but he says, well, you need to know this. And have you seen your MRI? I said, well, Dr. Babu will probably show it to you, blah, 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 blah. So finally, Dr. Babu comes in, very nice, and he says, let me show you your MRI. So he gets to the machine, and he shows it to me, and I'd never seen one. And of course, it's my brain, and it's my skull. So he's going down. It's like an elevator to hell, because it's going down, down, down. And each time he says, now watch that little black dot. And as he's peeling away the layers of my brain, down, down, down. It's getting bigger and bigger till it looks like the map of Asia on the game board of Risk. And he said, that's your neuroma. I said, really? He goes, yeah. He says, and you see that little thing that looks like a little shadow up there? He says, not a shadow. That's your neuroma trying to get into your brain. And once it does that, it's going to travel to the base of your neck and kill you. But we're not going to let that happen. So in my head, I'm going, Gershwin's tumor that wasn't a schwannoma, it was a different type, but it was at the base of his neck. That's what killed him. And I'm like, George, you can't not be doing this to me. Now, I know I'm older than you were, but this is nuts. Whoa. Is there something from playing your music that creates a tumor in your head? I mean, what's going on? So we go into the room, consulting room, and Dr. Babu says to me, he goes, okay, because this is very serious. He says, but we're going to take care of it. I said, well, Doctor, I have to tell you something before you go any further. You need to know what I do for a living. Because I've read on your website that there's a possibility I'll lose my hearing. Once you take this out, I may not have hearing, and it's on my right side. But I'm a concert pianist, blah, 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 blah. And he says, and he looked at me after I told him, he goes, you're world famous, aren't you? I said, not really world. I played around the world, but I said, I'm known in inner circles. He goes, and you're very good at what you do, aren't you? I said, yeah, I kind of am. He goes, okay. He goes, well, I'm going to tell you something. He goes, there's 5 things, my criteria for this. He goes, number 1, we want you to be alive. So I want to save your life. That's number 1. Number 2, I want you to have full mobility of your facial muscles, because you can get paralyzed for life if we can't get this all out, because this is a rather large tumor. So in fact, it's probably been growing in your head for 15 years.
Oh, my Lord.
So I'm thinking, okay, 2003, I played the Hollywood Bowl for 2 nights. Neuroma was with me on the bench. I'm going down to I played Carnegie Hall in 2013. Oh, the Neuroma was with me. We were playing duets. How nice. So I'm like, okay. So then he goes, okay, so that's 2. Then he goes, the third one is, I want you to, let's see, we got Save Your Life, Full Facial Mobility. Oh, then I want you to be able to walk without any problem, because it can affect balance. 4th is, I think that was the hearing. I'll try to save as much as the hearing as I can. And I forgot what the 5th one is. But anyway, after he said them, he goes, can you live with that? And I said, yeah, because I want to live, because that's what I want to hear. So I was going to Belgium to play with an orchestra there for New Year's program. I think it was like January 3rd and 4th. And so I said, can I fly? Because I'm supposed to, in less than a month. And he goes, oh, yeah. I said, oh, one other thing. I said, this is my first time to Brussels. I said, and they're known for 2 things, beer and chocolate. He goes, have all you want. I said, okay. I said, I plan on it. Thank you very much. I saw a lot of the pink elephant while I was there. So anyway, but I'm just thinking, and we'll schedule this as soon as we can get it in. Well, right at that point, they didn't have an opening until like May. And I'm like, this is December. I said, I can't wait that long. So I said, please let me know when you have an opening. So they finally did. It was in March. I think it was March 18th or 19th. Went down to St. John's Hospital in Novi. And, he told me it's an 8-hour operation, unless there are complications that it can go 12 to 16 hours. But we don't want that to happen. Had the operation, 8 hours almost to the minute. I had given him a CD of me playing Gershwin, because I hear they play music while they're operating. Mm-hmm. I keep forgetting the other doctor's name, because Babu opens you up, gets you ready, then the other doctor removes the tumor, and then Babu sews you back up. But anyway, he played my CD, which is all solo. One of them is all solo Gershwin with Rhapsody in Blue. When it got done, he told me this later. The other doctor came in. He goes, "Okay, you got to hear this. Play it again." So he's listening to it as he's doing it. So at least they kind of knew what I did while they're taking this out.
Yeah.
So very next day in the hospital after the operation, the doctor comes in and he says, textbook, he said, this couldn't have gone better. He goes, so we have that in our favor. He said, the second thing is we got it out at the right time. And I looked at him and I said, because originally he said it wasn't going to make a move probably till July or August of 2018. And I said, you don't have to say anything, but I wouldn't have had that much time. He goes, no, you wouldn't have.
Oh, my Lord.
So I said, okay. So then the physical therapist comes in, because, they're used to people taking a year, could even be 2 years of physical therapy and whatnot. So, I'm all IV'd up and then blah, 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 and all this. And I said, well, before we take a walk with the walker and the belt and all this, I have to go to the bathroom. He says, okay, come on, we'll take all your stuff with you. So, I'm standing up, taking care of my number one. And he goes, oh, you're doing that pretty good. She says, okay, well, I'll tell you what. We're going to walk. And he said, you're going to use the walker. And, but, no, wait a minute, how did that work? He goes, oh, I don't think you need the walker. He says, I'm just going to hold on to you with the belt as we go, because we're going to walk to the room we're going to put you in, because you're in ICU. We're going to put you in a regular room, but we're just going to walk the hall. He said, then we're going to be going by the nurse's station, just so you know, so behave. I said, okay, fine. So he's holding on to the belt, and I walk out, and I'm just walking, and, get my bearings, and I'm not falling over or anything. I get to that room, outdoor, the door of the room, and he goes, wow, you did that so well. I want you to walk back to your old room, and I'm not going to hold on to you. And I turned to him, I said, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? He goes, yeah, it is. I said, okay. So I'm walking without any assistance, and as we walk past the nurse's station, he goes, here comes the stud muffin, walking all alone. Here comes the stud muffin. Oh, I said, God, and I got these nurses for the rest. I said, don't do that. So we get back to the room, and I think his name was I want to say it was Pete, but that's not right. At any rate, he goes, look, I have been doing physical therapy for 24 years, and mainly with acoustic neuroma patients. I have never had anyone do what you just did. He said, it's virtually impossible. He said, I don't know how you're doing this. And he said, I got to talk to your surgeons because he said, he said, but I'm going to be back tomorrow because I got to take you to the PT room and you got to do the car door thing and you got to go up the steps and all that. I said, fine, because I had done all this with my mom when she was sick, so I knew the routine. So he comes back the next day, takes me to the PT room. I do all that flying colors, no problem. He goes, I'm signing off. You don't need any PT. He goes, I said, are you serious? And my friend Sylvia McNair was there, and so she filmed a lot of this on her iPhone. I've still yet to see it from this day. I don't know if I want to look at it, but he said, this is nothing short of a miracle. He said, and I was talking to your surgeons, and here's the only thing we can figure out. When these things were happening to you over the 15 years, because of the way your brain is wired because of music, every time something was going to be a hindrance, your brain went around it and rewired.
Wow.
He said, because seriously, the symptoms you were having last year should have been much more severe. I played a concert with Sylvia McNair the Saturday before the Monday I had the operation. And there's no way I should have. Now, compromised hearing, yes. But this is the thing. They had to sever the hearing nerve from the right ear in order to, because the way the tumor was, it was wrapped around that.
Oh.
So all the mechanism, my hearing mechanism for my right side is there, but there's nothing connecting it to my brain. So I'm hoping the next 10 years with advancements in nanoscience, that they'll figure out a way just to put that extension cord from my hearing mechanism to my brain and I could get it back, but we'll see. But anyway,
wow.
Now, the other thing that was really crazy, this is the great amen to this story, is I only had to cancel one solo concert during the recoup time. Because, it'd be at least 8 weeks of recoup, because I got a big bandage on my head and all that stuff. I got to heal. But I had one concert that I refused to cancel. It was with the Albany Symphony in New York with David Allen Miller, who's my favorite Gershwin conductor, along with Benjamin Zander, Boston Phil. They're my two best. But David and I have been doing Gershwin together for over 20 years. He conducts the Albany Symphony, and we were doing an all Gershwin concert. And I had agreed, originally there was going to be 2 concerts, but because of contracts and rehearsal time being shortened, it could only be 1. So I agreed, before I knew I had this tumor, to play all 4 piano works of Gershwin in one evening. And no one has ever done that. So you're doing Rhapsody in Blue Concerto and F Variations and I Get Rhythm, and the second Rhapsody all in one night. It's the Olympics of piano.
Yeah.
You do it. Okay. Let alone, I had, once I knew I had this tumor and all this stuff, I said, I got to let David know. But I didn't call him until 2 weeks before the operation. I said, hi, David. He goes, hey, everything okay? I said, yeah. They were talking about the concert and blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, and by the way, I said, in 2 weeks from now, I'm having major brain surgery, but don't worry, it'll be fine. And he goes, what? He goes, are you serious? He says, well, we'll just make an orchestra concert. You should be doing it. I said, no, here's the deal. I need a goal. 8 weeks from the day of the surgery to the concert, I said, if I can only play Rhapsody in Blue, that's what you get. If I can only play 2 pieces, I said, you get whatever it is. It's fine. Well, I did the concert. I played all 4 pieces, 2 encores. No problem.
Unbelievable, man.
Yeah, it was crazy. That was just like crazy because everyone was like, you could just see the orchestra because they all knew what was going on. And I walked on stage for the rehearsal. They're like, is he going to be able to do it? And now, again, I only had my left ear.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about it is you can figure out, okay, the way the piano's built, the lid is tilted. It projects the sound of the piano into the hall. So I always use my right ear when I'm playing with the orchestra. The sound for the piano comes to my right ear. The orchestra is on my left. This 80 to 100 piece orchestra. So, I can create the balance and know how to gauge my dynamics to the room and all that. Okay. Yeah. Well, now, in order for me to hear the piano, it has to boomerang the walls of the hall and then come around and get to my left ear. Well, guess what it's fighting with? this 80 or 100 piece orchestra that's going, "Wah." So it's like a funnel, and everyone's fighting for space.
Yeah.
So I have to go, come on, piano. I know you're in there. Come on, piano. But it made me reassess what I do, because like I never wanted to really know. I just do it. I've always done it. Why would I analyze it? So I finally had to analyze it. And I thought it was 80% hearing, 20% physical. No. It's 50-50. I know how to play my loudest louds or my softest softs by touch alone, whether I can hear it or not. I didn't know that. I mean, my body knew that. I didn't recognize it. So now, knowing that, when I went to play, because I didn't touch the piano for 3.5 weeks after the surgery. I was staying at my cousin and his wife. They lived down in Northville, so they were only 9 miles away from the doctors rather than driving back and forth from Bay City. And they didn't have a keyboard, so I had to buy a keyboard, have it shipped down to them, and I'd walk past it every day for 3.5 weeks. I said, I'll get to you. I'll get to you. I'm coming. I'll get to you. So I sat down, this electric, clavinova thing, and played a section of the Rhapsody. My main concern was not so much the hearing that I didn't hear, was would I feel the same inside creating and making music as I did before I lost half of my hearing? That was crucial to me. Oh. I mean, would it change the way I feel and connect to the music I'm making?
Right.
It didn't. It didn't change it. I'll never hear it the same, but I could still feel it the same.
Wow.
So then I thought, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Yes, there's going to be challenges, and sometimes it is, depending on the orchestra.
Do you put a monitor up? What do you do for yourself?
No. What I need to do, I have hearing aids. I have these very expensive hearing aids, which you may have noticed I do not have in tonight. My bad. But they're not quite regulated to the way I need them to be for the dynamic range of a piano. We can do it. We just haven't done it. What I need to do is sit in a hall, and it'll probably happen at U of M, at a big concert grand, and then they have their laptop.
Oh.
And as I play, they
dial you in.
Yeah, they check all the parameters, and because the dynamic range of a piano is huge.
Yeah.
When I have my hearing aids in now and I start playing, after 10 minutes, piano starts to sound a little wonky. It starts to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, Ugh. But these hearing aids that I do have also can be individually mixed. Like you see people putting earpieces in.
Yeah.
Well, it's already built into these little tiny things.
Man.
I just haven't done it. So I need to do it, obviously.
So you can, I got you. It's like the private personal monitors nowadays that singers use.
Yeah.
I get you. Yeah. Wow. What's on your platter for the year coming up here, 2022?
Doing a recording with Sylvia McNair of unknown Harold Arlen tunes, which I'm excited about because we've, other than that live Christmas recording we did from St. Stan's, we don't have something like that. So, and I knew Harold Arlen, the guy that, wrote Get Happy and Over the Rainbow and The Man That Got Away and all that stuff. So that I'm excited about. I'll be back with the Albany Symphony.
Excellent.
my Good Luck Orchestra. And let's see. Well, I might have already done that by this time that we're talking here, because that's in February.
Okay.
We're doing Gershwin, but we're going to do the actual jazz band version of the Rhapsody in Blue, the original, which I haven't done that much. So that should be a lot of fun. What else is going on with me?
You're gonna do your podcast, you said?
I'm good. Yeah, and just watching and seeing what you're doing here is giving me ideas.
Is that going to be also an outlet for you to put out your own original music through that?
Yes, sir.
I kind of gathered that when you said that earlier.
Yeah, and I do want to record and get, well, first of all, get the recordings I already have in CD form streamed. Okay, number one.
Yeah.
Oh, but I do have a new recording out that is streamed of the Concerto in F. That's been getting a lot of good reviews because we're using the original restored versions of all these Gershwin works. U of M Gershwin Initiative is this organization within University of Michigan that got a ton of grant money, and they're restoring everything George Gershwin ever wrote.
Dang.
Starting with the concert works. They've done Porgy and Bess, American in Paris, Concerto in F. So I made the first recording of that. So it's as close to what he, without editors, because once he died, everyone wanted to stick their name on his music.
Oh, yeah.
Edited by, and because a lot of times when he would orchestrate something, it was not orchestrated like the standard way people orchestrate. They were unusual voicings and chords and things. So what happened after he died, some of these so-called orchestrators went in and wanted to legitimize and make it more standard for symphony orchestra. And I remember at Jablonski, when he knew they were doing this, he said to me, he goes, better Gershwin mistakes than some hacks improvements. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, so now we're getting back to the real deal.
Going back to where it came from.
That's kind of exciting. Well, and also I'm doing a lot of prep work, and we'll start getting the word out to orchestras and concert venues for the centennial of the Rhapsody in Blue in 2024. I mean, it's 2 years away. Oh, wow. And they're already booking 2023, 2024. I'm getting calls already. So, but I want to do a legitimate tour. I don't want to just do one-nighters, which I've done my whole life. So I'm working with the producer right now to set this up, because also in 2024, it's the 80th anniversary of Marvin Hamlish's birth. So, and I have programs, those are my two specialties. So if I don't make enough money in 3 years of touring to have a retirement, I'm no good. That's my 401k.
Yeah.
K means keyboard. Kevin K. Cash. Okay.
Kevin Cole, thank you for everything you've brought to the world of music. I mean, you've taken it from the earliest to now. You're right out of our area. You're a Michigan born. Everything we do through the podcast here is just, it's touched the world. And what you've brought tonight is something we haven't brought here yet. And thank you for what you continue to do.
My goodness. Well, I know I'm very long-winded here, but I hope it's...
Well, we got room for another podcast down the road. I've invited everybody back, so we got to do those. We got to do the stories where you tell these goofy little ones in between. More connectors.
I did tell you about Muhammad Ali.
Right. Well, from all of us at the podcast, we want to thank Kevin Cole for coming in, and we will talk to you here in 2022.
All right.
The MMHP is hosted on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and our own Libsyn podcast site. You can also search MMHP 989 on Facebook for up-to-the-minute information, as well as both Dr. J and Sir Fred's album picks of the week, posted every weekend. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, and the Electric Kitch at electrickitch.com.
This podcast wouldn't be here without special help from Studio 163's Alan Garcia, our podcast videographer and wingman, Mr. Mike Beatty, MMHP tagline specialist, Mr. Eddie Switek, and of course, Gary Johnson, Fred Rife, the Electric Kitch, and all of our special guests, and especially you listeners. We want to thank you.
You've been listening to the MMHP and the 989. From all of us at the podcast, we want to thank you for tuning in.
I brought my yearbook for you to sign. You can write like "Stay cool" or something.
Could I write the way
all those years later?
Is that what you're asking for? Oh my god!
And then we gotta look up your picture in there.
Oh, this is great.
See, nobody else has signed that. I never had people. My freshman year, I had 3 people sign the yearbook, and they approached me about doing it. I never asked anybody.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I remember it was Jack Tobias, Laurie Race, and Connie Davitsky.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Is this from the year you graduated?
No, that I think is my.
This is 76, right? Or 70.
No, I think that's 75.